Inheritance rights are a very complicated area of Islamic law, and part and parcel of the reason why women inherit less from their parents than their male counterparts is on the assumption that when a woman marries, she inherits or she takes from her husband as well, so that her wealth is then complemented by what she gains from entering into marriage contracts, and also the wealth and the dowry she takes into marital contracts. So the basis of the understanding is that there are other ways in which wealth is coming and accruing on the woman's inherited rights. Having said all that, I understand that there are lots of Muslims and Muslim families in Muslim countries who actually cannot live equitably under the inheritance law because, for example, there may be a father who has 5 daughters. None of them are married, and he needs to make sure that they're all cared for. What does he do? Under Islamic law, he would also have to give to male relatives, close relatives, distant relatives. But where there is only money for him to supply or to ensure that his daughters have a safe future after his death, is he entitled to do that? I think the moral argument is that he is entitled to do that. So there are various complications around these issues, and I think that part of the problem of discussing anything to do where there seems to be an inequality between men and women is that people stick to these rules so rigidly and say, but if we're not doing this, this cannot be Sharia. And really what we should always be doing is looking at Islamic law, Islamic ethical norms within the wider context of society.
You see, in the inheritance law in Islam is based on, what shall I say, responsibility and right, or right and obligation. Because in Muslim setup, the man's responsibility is to maintain the family and look after the family. Even the dowry is to be given by him, not by the girl. Furnishing the home and establishing the dwelling, it is the responsibility of the boy. So his financial burden, practically speaking, is much greater than the financial burden of the girl. So that is why in certain situations, the share of the boy is bigger than the share of the girl, but is not linked with the gender or with the different sex in terms of male and female, but is linked with the practical responsibility of both of them. Having said that, not always the share of the boy is greater than the share of the girl. In certain situations, they have equal share. But however, if they wish to make arrangement before the marriage to divide the assets equally between them and so on, I don't see any objection for that. But the motivation should not be defiance of the religious law, but it should be, full consent of providing protection for both of them, or providing satisfaction for both of them.
She's completely entitled to keep her own property. Her husband has no right over what she has. And if she were to lend that money to her husband, she can give it away, of course, but if she were to lend that money to her husband and he does not return it, she can sue him in a court of law.
Strictly speaking, this is always where the tension between law and morality comes in. A woman who brings any property to a marriage, that's her property alone. The man is really not entitled to touch any of it. Any wealth she brings in, any property, is hers. Having said all that, most people who live ordinary working lives in the West know that whatever wealth they have, it has to be shared. Whatever wealth they have, whatever life they want to build, it has to be on a shared assumption and shared basis, and that includes property. We now have Muslim women who are paying the mortgage on their own, who are going out to work and pay the mortgage. They don't have to pay a mortgage, technically speaking. It is a man's obligation to provide for the woman. But because the patterns of society are changing and women's own expectations of their lives are changing, again, this is one of those negotiable and negotiated areas. What do we do with what I have brought into a marriage, what my partner has brought into a marriage, and what we will buy together, what we will share together. And without that common communication, then it's not a matter of her right or his right. It's really a matter of what's best for both of them.
You know, look, when we deal really with ownership, you know, and properties and things like that, the great problem we have, as exactly with the contract of the marriage's contract, we are dealing with a great deal of ignorance. So the women don't know the rights. So they are just, driven in one way or in another by families and people and men. This is totally wrong. In fact, the very reality for an Islamic marriage is from the very beginning separation of goods and properties from the very beginning. So when you are coming to a marriage, you have your own property and they should be put under your name. As a woman, you are keeping your name coming from your family and keeping your rights and keeping your ownerships and properties. So this is something which is Islamic. In fact, all the women should go to this when they get married in Europe, when you have the choice between shared and separated, ownership. You have to say, okay, look, this is the Islamic viewpoint is to distinguish between what is yours and what is mine from the very beginning, in order, if something happened, for me to get my things. More than that, if now a woman is working, all what she gets is for her, with one condition. If she says, I'm ready to share, it's the other way around, in fact. It's not for the man to say, I'm putting everything under my name and we'll see about you afterward. Is what is coming from woman is for her. And she has the rights to say, I can share if I want. If it's coming from a shared decision, we need you to work in this family because we need money, and this is a decision coming from the couple. It's coming from within. But when this decision is taken, it's for the woman to decide in which way she is going to share her part, her share in the process. So there is something which is the second level here, which is for her to decide. And then third thing is that when it's coming to a divorce or it's coming to a problem among them or between them, it's important here to understand that the woman should never accept people speaking on her name or taking her rights. Here there is something which is clear. She has to take back her part. She has to ask for her rights and for her everything which is her property. And there is no discussion about this. The problem we have is that very often men are coming with a very good understanding of what Islam is all about when it comes to marriage. But when it comes to divorce, they are interpreting Islam in their own way, which is not Islamic, in fact. And here there is ignorance. There is something which is it's not acceptable from an Islamic viewpoint. And this is why when we speak about contract, you need a contract, and this should be recognized by your society. So a civic contract, not only a religious one. When you are dealing with property, you have to know what are the different choices in front of you in order to get the closer one to what Islamic is all about, protecting your right. And then you need the advisors of Muslim scholars when it comes to divorce in order to get your rights, and not just keeping the families or the men deciding, because this is not Islamic.